Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. This is a weekly show where I, one by one, delve into the fictional works of H.P. Lovecraft, found here in the Complete Fiction. And today's story is Azathoth. It is a very short story. Not really a short story at all, actually, but I'll get into that. Azathoth is the beginning of a never-completed novel written by American horror fiction writer H.P. Lovecraft. It was written in June 1922 and published as a fragment in the journal Leaves in 1938 after Lovecraft's death. It is the first piece of fiction to mention the fictional being Azathoth, one of the major entities of Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos, though the entity only appears in the title. Typically, when I read these stories and do reviews, I take my own notes. Today I'm reading directly from Wikipedia because this story is literally one page long, and it's not really a story so much as a fragment of a story that was never completed or never fully written. To continue, the story begins by describing how the modern world has been stripped of imagination and belief in magic. The protagonist is an unnamed man who lives in a dull and ugly city. Every night for many years, the man gazes from his window upon the stars until he comes over time to observe secret vistas unsuspected by normal humanity. One night, the gulf between his world and the stars is bridged, and his mind descends from body out into the boundless cosmos. Now, this reminds me very much of some other H.P. Lovecraft works, including Polaris, where the protagonist is watching the blinking of the star Polaris, and then we get to see a connection made from the world of our world and then from the world of Polaris, wherein the two characters become one, exchange places, and it becomes unclear who is dreaming and who is waking. And it's very much a situation like that in this story, where the author, or the protagonist, is daydreaming, and eventually their daydreaming or meditation connects them with this other reality in Lovecraft's dream realms. And I can't help but wonder if this is, at least in part, a commentary on Lovecraft's time living in New York City. I know he said to have loved the home of his childhood, but then when he went and spent time in the cities, it was, not a pleasant situation for him. I can imagine him longing for something different. Lovecraft described his planned novel as a weird Eastern tale in the 18th century manner, and as a weird Vathek-like novel, referring to a novel of Arabia written by William Thomas Beckford in 1786, suggesting that his story would involve material of the Arabian Nights type. He wrote that, "I shall defer to no modern critical canon, but shall frankly slip back through the centuries and become a mythmaker with that childish sincerity with no one but the earlier Dunsany has tried to achieve nowadays. I shall go out of the world where I write, with a mind centered not in literary usage, but in the dreams I dreamed when I was 6 years old or less, the dreams which followed my first knowledge of Sinbad, the Agib, the Baba-Abdallah, and Sidi-Nonman." Reminds me actually very much of Tolkien in this regard, about, rather than concerning himself with the modern canon, he sort of looks down upon the way a lot of people are writing and decides that I'm going to do something completely different, sort of create my own mythology, my own world, and occupy it with a lot of interesting characters and languages and places. Though Lovecraft likely never got past a 480-word fragment that survives, that's the story that I read called Azathoth, he later wrote a novel with a similar theme, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. And that is just about it. It's a one-page story fragment about a dreamer living in a unpleasant, uninteresting city environment who daydreams his way to a better place. And that's something that we all can relate to, I think. Whether you've lived it in your adult life, you can certainly remember it from your time in the classroom as a child, long days of uninteresting instruction, and just drifting off and imagining other worlds, other things. I like to do that every single night when I lay in bed trying to fall asleep. And it's pretty neat to see how several times Lovecraft has sort of conveyed that sense of drifting out of your body, and he's managed to do that successfully on a page in a space of a relatively short life and short career. But he does it like a master, does it like one of the bests, and I'm sure glad that I found that little nugget Azathoth included here in this H.P. Lovecraft collected fiction. Alright guys, I know that episode is a little bit different than the other ones that I've released. I'm about halfway through the work of Lovecraft, I would say now. And coming up next is... Herbert West Reanimator. That is a good one. So look forward for me to talk to you about Herbert West Reanimator sometime next weekend. But until then, keep it creepy.